All right, welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're tackling, well, I guess you could say we're tackling ourselves.
Yeah, pretty much. Today we're really getting into that big question of what makes you you over time.
Like, yeah, what makes the you, like 10 years ago, the same you who's listening to us right now? We all have memories, a sense of self, but what exactly is that thread connecting it all?
It's one of those questions that sounds so simple at first, but then when you really start thinking about it, it gets deep fast.
Totally. And it's not just some abstract head scratcher either.
No way. This stuff really gets to the core of how we understand our own lives. Like, how do we make sense of our past, our responsibilities, even what we hope for in the future? All of that hinges on how we answer this question of personal identity.
Absolutely. So for this deep dive into the self, our guide is none other than John Locke.
Classic Locke.
Yeah, his ideas are literally centuries old, but they still have this huge impact on how we think about ourselves today.
For sure. He was wrestling with the same fundamental questions we still grapple with.
So to really get into Locke's head, we're going straight to the source. His essay concerning human understanding. Specifically, this really fascinating chapter he added in 1694. It's book 2, chapter 27, and it's all about, you guessed it, personal identity.
And that chapter, man, it really shook things up. It sparked all these debates back then. And honestly, it's still like the go-to text if you want to get philosophical about the nature of self.
Okay, so let's dive in. When Locke starts thinking about what makes you you, across time, where does he even begin? Like, what's his first move?
Well, he does what any good philosopher would do. He starts with definitions.
Makes sense.
Before he even jumps into this whole identity over time thing, Locke's like, hold on, we need to be crystal clear about what we even mean when we talk about a thing at any single point in time.
Gotcha. Got to lay the groundwork.
Right. So he lays out this idea that's often called the place-time-kind principle. It basically boils down to this. For you to be able to tell two things apart, two things that are of the same kind, they can't be in the exact same place at the exact same moment. And obviously, one thing can't be in two places at once. It seems pretty obvious, but
Yeah, I get it. It's like the basic rules of how we understand individual things existing.
exactly. Like, it's the foundation for even talking about anything as a separate entity. So Locke's using this as his starting point.
Okay, solid foundation. So then he turns his attention to us, to people. How does Locke define what a person is?
This is where it gets really juicy. He says a person is a thinking, intelligent being that has reason and reflection and can consider itself as itself, the same thinking thing in different times and places.
Whoa, okay, break that down for me.
Sure. So the real key there is that ability to reflect on yourself, to see yourself as this continuous thing that exists across different moments and locations. It's not just about being alive, it's about that inner recognition of me persisting.
So for Locke, it's like having that inner voice, that awareness of yourself over time, that really makes you a person, not just having, a heartbeat.
That's it. And he ties this directly to your sense of agency, your free will, and moral responsibility. He even calls person a forensic term.
Forensic,
Oh.
like CSI stuff.
Well, not exactly crime scene investigation, but think of forensic in the sense of like a courtroom or a legal setting. Locke is saying that the word person is what we use to pin responsibility for actions onto intelligent beings. Like beings who can understand the law, the concepts of happiness and suffering, all that.
Makes sense. We hold people accountable for their choices because we assume there's a continuous them making those choices.
Exactly. You see yourself as the same person who made a decision in the past and who will experience the consequences in the future. That continuity is what makes responsibility possible.
I'm with you so far. Now, where does consciousness fit into all this for Locke? Seems like a pretty big deal for him.
It's absolutely central. This is really the crux of his whole argument. He's basically saying that consciousness, that constant flow of awareness, your thoughts, feelings, experiences, is what truly makes you you. It's what sets you apart from every other thinking being out there.
So, if I'm getting this right, for Locke, what makes me the same person over time is this unbroken chain of my own awareness.
Precisely. And he argues that the scope of your personal identity, like how far back it reaches, is determined by how far back your consciousness can go. If you can remember doing something, having a thought, whatever, and you recognize it as yours, then that person who did or thought that thing and you reflecting on it now are the same self.
Okay, so far so good. But Locke was a pretty clever guy. I know he used some really wild thought experiments to kind of poke holes in these ideas to make us think harder.
Oh yeah, he loved a good thought experiment. They're great for really stretching our intuitions about who we are.
Like that famous one with the prince and the cobbler. Can you walk me through that?
Sure, so picture this. The consciousness of a prince, all his thoughts, memories, everything that makes him him, suddenly gets transferred into the body of a cobbler.
Whoa, okay, that's a pretty trippy image.
Right, it's like a philosophical body swap.
Mhm.
Now, Locke's question is, where does the person go in this scenario?
So you've got this cobbler's body walking around, but with all the prince's memories and personality. It's wild.
And Locke's point is that the person who was the prince is now inhabiting that cobbler's body. Like the physical man might be a cobbler, but the person, the one with all those princely thoughts and experiences, is the same one. He's saying that you are your mind, not just your body. It's a really stark way of separating the identity of a human being from the identity of a person.
It really makes you wonder what's truly essential to your sense of self. It's not just about what you look like or the physical stuff, right?
Exactly. And it gets even weirder. Locke also uses the example of sleeping Socrates.
Sleeping Socrates. Okay, I'm intrigued.
So he asks, is the waking Socrates the same person as the sleeping Socrates? Like, if the waking Socrates has zero memory of what sleeping Socrates might have been dreaming about, are they the same?
It's like, is there a break in consciousness when we're out cold? And if so, does that mean it's not really us doing the dreaming?
Right. And Locke's answer is that they're not the same person, even though they're obviously the same human being.
So if I have a crazy dream where I'm like conquering the world or something, my waking self shouldn't feel guilty about any dream world dictatorships.
Pretty much. Remember, Locke ties moral responsibility to personal identity, which is all about consciousness. If there's no connection between the sleeping and waking states, no continuity of awareness about that action or thought, then they're basically different persons.
Man, Locke's really challenging our everyday idea of what me even means. And he goes even further, right? Doesn't he separate personal identity from the idea of having a soul? That must have been a total bombshell back then.
It was a radical move. For centuries, the dominant view, both philosophically and religiously, was that being a person was totally bound up with having this unchanging, immaterial soul. But Locke basically throws that out the window.
How so?
Well, he suggests that consciousness could potentially be transferred from one thinking substance to another.
So, like, even if my soul was swapped out with a different one, as long as my stream of consciousness stayed intact, I'd still be me. That's a wild thought.
Yep, that's exactly what he's getting at. Your personal identity, according to Locke, doesn't hinge on having the same soul throughout your life. And to illustrate this, he gives us the day and night man example.
Okay, day and night, man. Hit me with it.
Imagine you've got one person, but they have two totally separate streams of consciousness within the same body. One is active during the day, the other at night. And get this, they have absolutely no memory or awareness of what the other one experiences.
So it's like two completely different personalities sharing one body, totally unaware of each other's existence. That's some serious personality stuff.
Right. And Locke's argument is that these day and night men are like as different as any two random people like Socrates and Plato, even if they share the same soul.
It really drives home the point that it's all about that continuity of consciousness, not some underlying soul that makes you you. That must have ruffled some feathers back in the day.
Oh, absolutely. It was a huge departure from how people traditionally thought about themselves.
And if I'm remembering right, Locke doesn't even commit to saying what this thinking substance is made of, does he? Like, whether it's material or immaterial.
You're right. He kind of leaves that door open. He admits that our thoughts and experiences seem non-physical, but he also throws out this idea that the underlying stuff of minds, the substratum, as he calls it, is ultimately beyond our grasp.
So he's not saying our minds are made of physical stuff, but he's not ruling it out either.
Exactly. And he even famously suggests that God could have given matter the ability to think. Who knows, right?
So he's focusing on the thinking itself, the consciousness, not
Yeah.
getting bogged down in what that thinking thing might actually be made of.
You got it. His main point is that consciousness is the key to personal identity, regardless of what that consciousness is ultimately made of.
Okay, I'm following. So Locke drops this philosophical bombshell. What was the reaction? People must have gone nuts.
Oh, you better believe it. There was a total uproar, especially from folks who felt like Locke was basically kicking the soul to the curb.
Yeah, the soul was a pretty big deal back then.
Huge. And a lot of philosophers were super attached to it. They argued that true identity required this unchanging substance, which they thought could only be the soul.
So they saw Locke's focus on consciousness as, like, too flimsy, too changeable, to be the real basis of who you are.
Exactly. They felt that consciousness is fleeting, it comes and goes, and your memories can be faulty, right? So how could something as unreliable as that be the foundation of your true, unchanging self?
It's interesting, though, how even some of the criticisms of Locke, like, pushed the whole discussion of personal identity forward.
Oh, absolutely. One of the most insightful criticisms came from Joseph Butler. He pointed out that Locke's view might be kind of circular.
Circular. How so?
Well, Butler suggested that maybe our awareness of being the same person across time already assumes that we are the same person. Like when I remember something from my past, I recognize it as mine. But what makes that feeling of mine reliable?
Yeah, good point. It's like saying, I know it's me in that memory because it feels like me, but that doesn't really explain what creates that feeling of me in the first place.
Exactly. And Butler also argued that memory itself might not be essential for personal identity. He thought you could still be the same person who did something even if you have zero memory of it.
Hmm. Interesting. It's like, even if I forget huge chunks of my life, maybe I'm still, in some sense, the same person.
That's the idea. And then there's Thomas Reed's brave officer objection, which is a classic.
Oh yeah, that one's a head scratcher.
It really highlights some of the problems with making memory the be-all and end-all of personal identity. So Reed asks you to imagine this brave officer. As a kid, he gets a really bad flogging. Later on, he becomes a soldier and captures an enemy flag in battle. Then, even later, he's an old general. Now here's the twist. He remembers the flogging when he's capturing the flag. And he remembers capturing the flag when he's a general. But by the time he's old, he's completely forgotten about the flogging from his childhood.
Okay, so we've got this chain of memories linking these different points in his life.
Right, and if you go by Locke's memory theory strictly, the kid who was flogged and the soldier who captures the flag are the same person because they share that memory. And the soldier and the general are the same person for the same reason. But here's the problem. The old general has no memory of the flogging. So, according to Locke's theory, he's not the same person as that little kid.
Ah, I see where you're going with this. It creates a contradiction.
Exactly. The general is both the same person as the kid, through the memory link of the soldier, and not the same person, because he has no direct memory of the flogging. It shows that maybe the connections between different stages of our lives are more complex than just simple direct memories.
It's like our sense of self is woven together from all sorts of threads, not just memories. So with all these criticisms flying around, did anyone actually come to Locke's defense?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Right from the start, there were folks who recognized the importance of what Locke was trying to do. One of his earliest and most vocal supporters was Catherine Trotter Cockburn.
She was a philosopher, too.
Oh, yeah, a brilliant one. She wrote this whole defense of Mr. Locke's essay of human understanding, where she tackles all these criticisms head on. Like, she argued that Locke wasn't trying to say the soul doesn't exist or that it's not immortal.
So she was kind of clarifying his position, showing that it wasn't as outrageous as some people were making it out to be.
Exactly. She emphasized that Locke was mostly trying to, separate out different concepts. Man, body, soul, and person, and showing that they don't always line up neatly, even though people had assumed they did.
Makes sense. And then later on, you have thinkers like Edmund Locke coming along, right? And he kind of reframed Locke's idea of person, right? Less as this fixed thing and more as a label that comes with moral weight.
That's a really important point. Law pointed out how much emphasis Locke put on moral responsibility, on this idea that person is the kind of being that can be held accountable for their actions. He suggested that person might be more of a functional term, something we use to pick out which beings deserve praise or blame, not necessarily a fundamental substance.
So less about what a person is deep down and more about what they do and the implications of their actions.
Precisely. And that interpretation has had a lasting impact on how Locke is understood today.
It's amazing how Locke's ideas, even the criticisms of them, sparked all this new thinking about personal identity.
It's like he laid the groundwork for centuries of debate, even if he didn't necessarily have all the answers himself. And you see this in how his work influenced later thinkers, like Anthony Collins, for example. He took Locke's emphasis on consciousness and kind of ran with it in a materialist direction.
Materialist. So he thought that maybe consciousness is just a product of the physical brain.
Exactly. He was much more open to that possibility than Locke himself was. And then you have David Hume, who took things in a completely different direction.
Hume, yeah, he's famous for being like a super skeptic about pretty much everything.
Total skeptic. And when it came to personal identity, he questioned whether we even have this continuous, stable self that Locke was talking about.
Didn't he describe the self as like a bundle of perceptions?
That's the one. He basically said that we're just these ever-changing collections of thoughts, feelings, and sensations, and that our idea of a unified self is just our minds trying to impose order on this chaotic flow of experience.
So in a way, Locke's move away from a soul-based identity kind of paved the way for even more radical views of the self, even ones that question the self altogether.
It's a really fascinating trajectory. And even though Locke's ideas were developed centuries ago, they're still super relevant to how philosophers today are thinking about personal identity.
So even now, when philosophers are being philosophers trying to figure out this whole identity thing, Locke's still a major part of the conversation.
Oh, for sure. Like a lot of modern theories about personal identity can be traced back to Locke's focus on consciousness. He's like the granddaddy of the psychological continuity view, which basically says that what makes you you over time is the continued existence of your psychological states, like your memories, beliefs, desires, all that.
And there are philosophers today who are still building on that idea, refining it, arguing about the details.
Absolutely. Thinkers like John Perry, Derek Parfit, Maria Schechtman, they're all working within that broad framework that Locke laid down. Even those who disagree with it, they still have to engage with Locke's ideas in some way. It's like he set the terms of the debate.
So even if we don't fully agree with Locke today, he still shaped how we even talk about who we are.
100%. And it's not just these like mainstream theories either. Even those who take a really different approach, like those who think personal identity is all about the narrative we construct about our lives, they're still responding to Locke in some way.
It's like he's this inescapable figure in the philosophy of self.
Totally. And it goes beyond the Western philosophical tradition, too. Like, even thinkers who are looking at personal identity through the lens of, say, African philosophy, they still have to contend with Locke's legacy.
Locke's everywhere.
He is. And even those who are critical of the whole method of using thought experiments to think about personal identity, they often point back to Locke as, like, the guy who really popularized that approach.
It's wild how influential his work has been. Okay, so before we wrap up this philosophical journey, what would you say is the main takeaway from Locke's big contribution to our understanding of personal identity, like the thing that really shifted the whole game?
I'd say it's that move away from the idea of a fixed, unchanging substance, like a soul, being the basis of who you are.
Instead, he put the focus
On consciousness. That ongoing flow of your memories, your experiences, that self-awareness that ties your present self to your past self.
It really makes you think about, like, how you connect to your own past. Is it just memories? Or is there something more to it, some kind of continuous thread of awareness?
That's the question to ponder, and it leads us to a final thought to leave you with. If personal identity really does rest on this flow of consciousness, what happens when that flow gets disrupted? Like when we have gaps in our memory or periods of unconsciousness, or even just those times when we feel like we've changed so much that we're hardly recognizable to our past selves.
Deep stuff.
Right. And with all the advancements in artificial intelligence, we're even starting to ask, what if we create machines that have a continuous stream of self-aware thoughts? Would they count as persons in Locke's view?
Mind-blowing.
Totally. Locke's work has opened up all these incredible avenues of inquiry that we're still exploring today. It's a testament to how powerful and enduring his ideas really are.
Yeah, and we hope this deep dive has given you all something to think about, maybe even sparked some philosophical pondering of your own. So until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring, and keep diving deep.